Good evening, everyone. This is Joe Henches with Beyond the Chart. Today is Wednesday, May 28, 2014, and this is our stock market analysis today. We're going to look at the BRIC countries again. We're going to look at our markets like we always do, but then we're going to walk through and look at Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Look at the 5 most active Chinese stocks are the ones I follow today, and then look at Tesla also. So we've got a lot to cover. We'll dive right into it. The Dow was down 42 points today, so we had a little bit of a pullback. You can see I put some of these little trend lines in here because I've noticed that in the diagonals or in this triangle here, when it's breaking the trend line, it seems to have then, gone down to the other end or broken out. Now, the one fake out that we got in here is that when we got this break, it didn't fall through and didn't break down here. So now, as I mentioned before, I'm still holding this pattern and scenario because it hasn't taken out this point yet. And I'll have to reevaluate if it takes out this high up in here on May 13th. All right, let's take a look at the S&P 500. I talk about this in the post, and we're talking about the compression that we're getting, okay? Very compressed doji type day in here. You can see I drew this trend line in here again. I still think we're in this ending diagonal type of rising wedge pattern, and I've got to go with that until something else emerges. I can't even talk. But that's the best scenario that I've got at this point. Okay, when you see the next one I want to look at is the New York Composite. Now, I talked about in here, look at the 2 days of compression that we've got in here. Okay, yeah, we had a tight day here, had a couple of tight days here. I went back and looked at these in terms of the high to low of the 2-day range, and we did not get as tight a 2-day range as we got from the high to low in here. You got to go all the way back to here, okay, before you find that. And I may have missed a couple, but I don't think so. I mean, I looked, it's pretty obvious to be able to see which ones are in there, and when I went back and looked at it, this was the last time that we had something tighter than what we got today. And then, as I mentioned in the post, that we got this pop up to the upside, then we went sideways for almost 3 weeks, then we collapsed. Now, there's no guarantee that's what we're going to get here, but it's ripe for the scenario that we've got. The rising wedge, we're getting to the end of it, we're pushing out here. It would be ripe to see something like that. Okay, the Nasdaq is the next one I want to mention. And again, here I talk about this again, the most compressed day since March 5th. Okay, and so you got to go all the way back here. So we've had this little rally. You had a rally, sideways move, rally. It's almost like, an A and a B, C kind of thing, and this almost looks equal to this. So we may have some balance in here that maybe this corrective wave is over and that this is the ending point of the corrective wave. We're at the top of my Keltner channels also. We've kind of gone above the 55. So we'll have to see what kind of action we get here the next day or a couple days. And we had this day, and then you did go a little bit higher for a couple of days, but they both closed down, and then you ended up chopping down sideways for the next 6 weeks or so. And this is the highest close, still the highest close since April 7th, 2000. So it hasn't been surpassed, and we'll have to see whether or not we get a similar type of scenario where we roll over from here. Okay, the next one we're going to look at, let's see, that's the New York. Let's move into the BRIC countries. Let's go ahead and look at Brazil. Brazil looks like it's rolling over. We're getting the 10 crossing below. Let me pause for a minute. I'm not looking at the indicators tonight because we looked at them last night. There really hasn't been any change. They're about the same. We'll look at them again tomorrow night. Sometimes when you look at these things from a day to day, they just don't change. So we're going to dive right into the BRIC countries. Brazil, pretty good size sell-off here, today's action. And it looks like a reversal type bar in terms of going up to a high over the last 3 or 4 day high, and then reversing down and closing below all the action that closes of the last 3 or 4 days. So pretty good little swing to the downside. We've got the 10 down below the 21. you're in somewhat of a bullish mode because the 21's above the 55. So the intermediate wave you'd say is up, but again, that's because of the price move. That's why I'm always a little bit cautious with the moving averages. They can kind of tell you from a picture standpoint that, wow, okay, the trend looks up, but we're getting divergence in here, so the trend could be turning also. And when you get this break below, when's the last time you got that to the downside? You had a break below right here. You had a little snapback rally, and then that was it. That was the name of that too. It came back and touched right in here, but pretty much trended down, touched back in here a little bit, but trended downward. So we could be in for a little bit of a retracement move. We'll have to watch and see. Of course, Brazil's got all the publicity going on about the World Cup that's being hosted there. So Russia, MISEX Composite. I think this is done in ABC corrective type action. I think this is 3 waves. 1, 2, 3. And 3 waves are always corrective type waves. So we'll see if this really does play out. It looks like it's pulled back up into this congestion. Okay, and now we sold off yesterday. A little bit of a bounce today. We haven't closed below the 10, so we need to get this to roll over and to break this trend line if it's going to resume downward and retest this low. But that's the way it looks to me. And you look at the RSI, it's got a trend line here too that would probably break before this trend line breaks. Okay, India. India is in the midst of a pretty powerful move. We've been talking about this for a long time, and of course the election results have kind of spiked that enthusiasm. But I think we're in the middle of a 3-wave, 3 of 3 of 3 kind of thing. So we've had 1, 2, we're in the midst of a 3, and as you count out the waves, you end up being in a 3 of a 3 of a 3 kind of thing. And from an Elliott wave perspective, like I mentioned in the post, those are usually the strongest waves, and as you can see, you're getting gaps in the action here, almost straight up type action. We had gaps here as the first 3rd wave launched off. So right now it looks pretty bullish. That doesn't mean we're not going to get a pullback, but India is looking very bullish. And then the last one we'll look at is the Shanghai Composite for China. And a week ago we got this big reversal bar, outside up day here, closed above the highs went below the lows of the last 2 days and closed above the highs of them. And so it's like a bullish engulfing bar. Okay, and I call it a double key reversal day because it did go to a lower low and then came back and closed above the closes of the last couple of days. And so since then, it's continued to push to the high side. We'll see whether this move is enough to launch this up to this trend line and break it out and get some move to the upside. That's what we'll be watching for in here. So let's see. Brazil, Russia, India, China. Okay, I think that's it for the BRIC countries. Let's go ahead and dive into the 5 most active Chinese stocks with first one being QIHU. QIHU 360. And this is interesting in that, I think we've had 5 big waves up, and I'll show you that bigger picture in a minute. It's broken this downward trend line. We've got the 10 crossing the 21. But the 21 is still below this 55 with the 55 going down, slanting down. So I still think this is a somewhat negative thing. So I'm always a little bit cautious when you have this, especially given that I think we're in corrective mode. So what I would be doing if I was going to go long in this, and I'm not saying I am, but because I would wait to see if I got a pullback below the 10, and if we continue, and then got to close back above the 10. So a pullback, pull back down to the trend line, close below it, and then a close back above it to see if we, kind of like what we did in here. Okay. See how the blue line crossed the blue-gray line, so the 10 crossed the 21. You got this big positive move. You came back, closed below the blue, and then you closed above it, and you went. And then you try to, manage it as much as you possibly can. You know, maybe getting out at the low of the last day or the prior 2 days or something, and then you get a close below it again, and you get a close back above it, and you swing high again. Same thing happens again. You close back above it, and you ride it as much as you possibly can. So that's what I would be looking for if we were looking to go long. But right now I'm still a little cautious because of the way this is acting, and when you look at the fact that I think we've got 5 waves. This point did not go below this point. Okay, so this is a valid wave 2 because it did not retrace and go beyond the beginning of wave 1. So I've got this as wave 1, wave 2, and then this big wave 3, which was an extended wave 3, and this is a wave 5 in here that extended. Okay, not unusual at all. But then when you get a big extended wave 3, you get a shorter wave 5. And after a deep retracement wave 2, you're going to get a sideways shallow wave 4. So it looks to me like we've gotten our 5 waves up, and therefore you're going to correct. So the real question is, how much of a correction? It's corrected a little bit over 38% of this entire move. When you look at this move, okay, I'm measuring from the beginning here all the way to here. It's gone a little bit over 38%, not quite 50. Typically, on a big correction like this, and if it's the first one, because here's where the trading started, it's going to correct at least 50 to 68%. So I'm not sure that it's really corrected as much as it ought to. So that's why I'm a little cautious on the stock also. Okay, so that's my thoughts on QIHU. Next one is Melco Crown Entertainment. Melco is breaking this trend line. It's moving up, but again, I've got the same caution because the 21 is so solidly trending below the 55. The 10's trying to cross in here, but you see that occasionally in strong downward moves. Okay, so I'm a little bit cautious that this thing could be coming back down to the downside in here. And I've been actually trying to sell it in here, and I'll have to look to see. I can't remember if we were keeping the. I'll have to look to see. Just look at the Trade Ideas webpage to see if the setup is still on for this. I think I may have taken it off because this crossed. Yeah, I believe I did. Now that I remember, I'm keeping it on Las Vegas Sands, but I'm taking it off of this because we got the cross. So I'm going to need to see a close down below the blue line for me to start to look at going short again, buying puts. Okay, that's Melco. YY is getting the same kind of bounce in here. We're getting across. So again, I would be cautious of going long in here. You might want to wait for that pullback, just like I talked about on QIHU. So, you know, that's my best estimate on this thing. It's pulled back down right here to the 233 day and got support right in here, kind of congested around that support line. But now it almost looks a little bit like an A, B, C type rally, and you just have to be a little bit cautious of jumping in right now. The next one is BIDU, and BIDU looks like it did a big reversal bar today. Okay, so we've been looking for this. It looks like a big topping formation. We've talked about this before. It's actually rallied more than I thought it would. The symmetry is now a little bit off, but we're at the top of this Keltner channel and we're getting a reversal bar. And the reversal bar, so it went to a higher high and it closed down and it closed below the close of the last 2 days. So it's like a double key reversal bar. Now, it will be interesting to see, do we get follow through and we come down here and close below the 10 and we start to collapse and of course then break this trend line. You see that, you see a close below the 10, then I'll be looking to see, okay, is there a setup here to the downside? And then you break this trend line and it's going to have a shot at coming down here and breaking down out of this top. But right now you need several things to happen before it breaks down out of that top. Okay, CTRP is the next one, and okay, CTRP also had a reversal bar today. Now remember, I talked about this was like a hanging man right in here, and I was cautious because it had a similar type hanging man here. We had it, I saw it once before also. And here we're getting the reversal bar. It hasn't reversed enough for me to sit back and say I want to play it to the downside. There's a lot of momentum here. I mean, I think we could be in a wave 3. We might just get a pullback and then a reverse and go to the upside. So that's what I'd be watching for, especially when you get the 21 starting to break above the 55. We could just get a little pullback and then come back up and close above the 10 again and go. So that's what I'll be watching for on C-Trip. And then on Tesla, Tesla's continued to rally over the last week. 2, 3, 4. So we were back in here 21st last time. Thought maybe this is all it was going to go, and it continued to push a little bit higher. It's right here trying to break this trend line. Got a doji bar in here today. So I don't know. That doesn't look extremely bullish to me, but sometimes these things just have a way of meandering their way higher. We still are below. It hasn't taken out this high here, and I think this high is lower than, what is that, 218.66, 219. So yeah, you know, lower, lower, lower. Hasn't breaking that pattern yet. So it'll be interesting to see if it breaks this little trend line here. It's going to roll on down and come on down to at least down in this area, I think, if not further. Okay, that's it for tonight. That's a lot to cover. This has been Joe for Beyond the Chart. Have a great Thursday, and share the post, share the video, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. So we'll be back with you. Have a great Thursday. Thanks for stopping by.